All right, we're recording. I'll go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for being with us tonight. My name is Russell Graves. I'm coming to you live from Hackberry Farm, Dodge City, Texas. I look on the chat list and I recognize a few names. Some of the folks that even been out here to Hackberry Farm before. So I'm glad everyone joined in tonight and glad you're here to hear about the Wildlife in Focus contest. I'll tell you a little bit about my involvement in a minute. Uh, but it's just good to kind of share the good news of events like this and help spread the word about it. And that's how I became involved in it. I was asked by the folks at Wildlife in Focus to help spread the word amongst the people in my network and tell everyone about this exciting contest that's coming up and how it may be a fit for you, whether you live in Texas or whether you live somewhere else. And just again, tell you about some changes in the contest that I'm aware of, tell you why I think it's a benefit, and just go through. It's going to be kind of a 10,000 foot view of the contest. I won't get really deep into the rules. I mean, I'll provide links at the end so you can go download your own set of rules so you can really understand it. But this is really kind of a 10,000 foot overview of this contest, and because I'm like you are, I've already entered as a contestant, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later as we go through it. So with that said, and again, if you have any questions as we go along about anything in particular, just feel free to put it in the chat. We have Miles Phillips. He's the director of the contest and the Wildlife Info. He's leading the efforts on the outreach with this Wildlife in Focus. And Miles is actually the one that asked me to do this webinar tonight and kind of share this amongst my audience. So I'm glad to be able to help it. I'm glad to help out with this. And so without further ado, here we go. Tell you a little bit about me so you can see where I'm coming from. I'm a wildlife and nature photographer. I've been doing it for a long time and just love the medium. I've always loved photography since I was a teenager and loved wildlife and nature photography because I grew up in rural Texas, and rural people and places and things are really close to my heart. And so, but I've never been a big contest enterer before. I've entered one other or a couple of contests in my life. I'll tell you this story real quick because if you follow me enough, you know I like telling stories. But the first contest I ever entered last week was like I want to say like the 35th anniversary of the first contest I ever entered. And it was the county fair when I was a teenager. I think I was 19, maybe 20. I might not have been a teenager anymore. But I think I was about 19. I entered some pictures in the county fair. And by that time, I'd already kind of been taking a few pictures and was, getting as good as I could be at that point, especially shooting film. And so the first contest I ever entered, at first when I walked in to look at see how well I did, I'd won every category that I was in, and I'd won best of show in the contest at our county fair. And I was so proud of that until later on when I brought some people by to show them later that night, and they took all my ribbons away. I got disqualified for it because because I had one picture published in a magazine, and they didn't even have this in the rules, but they said I was a professional photographer, which at that time I was not. And so that was my first experience with the contest. So that soured me a little bit on the contest, and so I never really entered many contests after that. My contests were to compete in the world of professional photography, and so that's what I did. And so as time went on, I did enter another contest, and it was Wildlife in Focus. I entered it on the last round, but I'm also a landowner. And so I kind of come about this contest in a couple of different ways. Not only am I a photographer, I'm also a landowner that practices a lot of the ethics that the Wildlife in Focus people practice. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. I'm a former judge of this contest. I judged it back in, it's every other year. So not the last cycle, but the cycle before that, which I think was 2021, I guess it was. I think it was when I judged the contest. Had a good time doing that. I'm a former contestant. I competed in the last contest, which was 2023. I didn't place anything because I didn't enter anything because I just didn't have the pictures I thought it took to compete. And so even though I paid my entry fee, I never turned anything in. So I was a contestant, former judge, and I'm a current contestant now. So this year I'm entering as a photographer and a landowner. And I'm pretty excited about that, to be able to do both of them, because I hope the work I've done on my own land, I can showcase it through the photography I'll end up doing on my own land. And so tell you a little bit about Wildlife in Focus. You can see their mission there. I won't read it too much, but their whole mission is preserve and protect the native wildlife and their habitats in Texas. and they're a 501c3 organization, and they try to accomplish their mission by getting cooperating landowners to team with photographers and to showcase the good conservation work that's going on in private lands in Texas. Thing about Texas, if you've never been here much, we don't have an abundance of public land. I mean, 96% of the state, the last time I looked, is 96, 97%, depending on the source you read, it's all it's all privately owned. And so, we have a couple of national parks, we have some National Forest Service lands, some state parks, but the overwhelming majority in land in Texas, and especially the wildlands, are held in private hands. And so sometimes access can be tough. And so with this contest, the Wildlife in Focus folks are actively working with local landowners in the state, and getting them to enter this contest and helping them match up with photographers to showcase the good work that they're doing, and trying to conserve those trying to promote the conservation of and protection of wildlife and wildlife habitats. And so, to tell you a little bit more about this contest, this year they're going to pay out more than $40,000 in prize money, and that ought to get anyone excited about that, because I know a lot of contests are for bragging rights, but the entry money you pay in, they turn around and pay a bunch of it back out to you in terms of prize money. And then in the past, and this is the thing that got me really excited about it this year especially, it was only open to ranches in South Texas and along the coast. And this year it's open to locations statewide. And so the reason why I'm excited about it is, being a landowner that's lived in North Texas his whole life, I'm able to enter my land and then compete on my land, and it just makes it a lot easier for me to compete and be a part of this. Now, I'll address this in a minute. You may be asking the question, do you have to be a landowner to compete? You don't. I mean, the landowner portion and the photographer portion are separate. I just happen to be blessed enough where I can enter as both. So if you're just here as a photographer, then you're in the right place. If you're here just as a landowner, you're in the right place. And this is a unique event in the fact that it's not just a free for all. In fact, it does pair photographers with landowners, and provide access to photographers so they can photograph on the landowner's property. And as such, you have to register in advance so you can get teamed with the right partner on this. And so I've talked about this a little bit already, but here's the concept. Landowners who do conservation work on their properties team with photographers to capture the beauty of private lands in Texas. And I can tell you, there was a time, I used to live in Northwest Texas near the town of Childress. Now I live in Northeast Texas near the town of Bonham. And this is the area where I grew up. So I ended up buying a farm that's a mile away from where I grew up. But not only living, well, we're a little different in Fannin County in that we have some national grassland, some public land, about 24,000 acres of public land in the county that we can access. But growing up, I've always been blessed to have access to a lot of private land. When I moved out to Northwest Texas near Childress in the Texas Rolling Plains, I used to tell people, I was proud to announce this, that I had access to about 1 million acres of private land out there, because out there, aside from a couple of state parks, there's virtually no public land out there. And so I had to learn to be able to access private land. And in doing that, one thing I discovered was all the beauty in nature isn't just held in public lands, it's held in private lands too. In fact, I would argue some of the most pristine places I've visited in Texas belong to private landowners who just love the land, and they're wanting to do anything they can to conserve the land, make it better for wildlife, and make it better. And that's the legacy they're going to leave behind. I know I'm certainly doing that with the properties that I own and the properties that I control, is I just want to make them better for the next generation, so I can continue on that land conservation ethic that I was raised with, and I know a lot of other Texas landowners are raised with as well. And then again, each landowner is teamed up with a photographer, and I've got some frequently asked questions I'll go through in a minute that may answer some of these questions if you have some popping up. Each landowner is teamed with a photographer to capture nature on their respective properties. And then essentially what they want to do is have a contest. The wildlife and the Nature in Focus wants to have a contest. It's 100 days. They hope to get 100 photographers and landowners teams. And then in the end, and then each photographer can submit up to 100 images in their portfolios, because there's a whole lot of different categories that you can enter. So essentially the contest runs from February 21st, 12:01 a.m. to midnight, May 31st, 2025. So it's a 100-day block of time that once you get paired with the landowner, then you can spend as much time. You can spend all 100 days on a property if you want to. You can spend 2 days on a property if you want to. It doesn't really matter. It's really up to you. I think the advantage to this is if you know how expensive accessing some of these properties can be, and this entry fee you have to pay really makes it affordable. If you've got a little bit of time, 3 or 4 or 5 days or a week, all of a sudden it makes it pretty inexpensive to get to spend some time on some marquee properties in search of that perfect wildlife photo. And so, like me entering as a landowner, there's no way I can spend 100 days taking pictures, 100 straight days. So I hope to get a couple of weeks in of photography over that whole time span. But the whole point is the pictures that you take have to be taken during this time span to be eligible to compete in the contest. And photos must be taken on designated land during the official contest dates. And what that means is once you're assigned to a landowner, you've got to take those pictures you'll enter in the contest on that landowner's land. Because the whole point is to showcase the conservation work that landowners are doing on their particular properties. And then categories, this is what excites me. And there's a lot of subcategories on this. So, for example, like birds includes everything from we'll break it down in terms of the classifications of birds, and I'm paraphrasing this off the top of my head. Well, let's do mammals. Mammals, you may have like a category for deer. You may have a category for the smaller mammals like skunks or badgers, or predators like bobcats and coyotes. And so there's a whole lot of different categories. So my strategy when I started doing this last time is I was going to try to hit, knowing that a lot of people are going to hit the more common categories like deer and things like that. My strategy was going to be to try to hit all the lesser categories that I thought I could get some really unusual and some good pictures, and be able to really try to enter in a way that you're not competing with the very best deer pictures that are on there. Because like me on my property here, we've got deer here, but they're nothing spectacular like you might see in South Texas, like the really big bucks they have down there. So my strategy was to steer away from the deer stuff. Instead, I was going to look at invertebrates and then the reptiles and some of the more unusual categories I was going to try to enter. And then they have special divisions there. Special divisions, again, when I share the link with you, you can go download the rules. It's got all the categories in there, and there's a ton of them. But the special divisions includes weather and landscapes and people on the land and different categories like that. So there's a whole lot of different categories you can enter. And in fact, I would encourage, if you decide you want to enter, I would encourage you to take a look at all the categories and really strategize before the contest even starts, what you can and can't, what you may or may not be able to take pictures of pretty effectively. And I see some questions coming in. We'll get to those in a minute. Or Miles, if you're looking at that, you may go ahead and take a look at some of those questions in there. And there's a $500 entry fee if you're a photographer to enter the contest. And so, and then the landowners pay a $500 entry fee, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. And so this year, what's new about the contest, I'm told, is they're going to have a video contest too. And this excites me as well, as someone who's dabbled in video and likes the medium. I just think it's a good opportunity to try your hand at something new. And so the video contest, it's kind of like the photography contest. The time frame, it runs exactly the same time, and it's the same concept. So in other words, if you're carrying a modern DSLR or a modern mirrorless camera, you can shoot with the more modern ones. You can shoot 4K video with all these things. So not only are they good for doing still pictures, they also make wonderful video cameras too. And so one of the things I've always done when people are out with me taking pictures, I encourage them to shoot video clips as well. And so, and I do the same thing. And so I'm pretty excited about this video contest as well. And so if you enter the photo contest, you're automatically entered in the video contest as well. You can, so that $500 entry fee covers both the photography and the video contest. But what they're looking for at the end are edited pieces, not just clips. They like to see everything kind of put together to maybe tell a story about the land you're on, or about a particular species, or really the sky's the limit on kind of how you tell that story. But they're really interested in trying to tell stories about the places that you'll be photographing on. And if you just want to enter the video contest alone, that's $100 for the entry fee on that. And so entering as a landowner, if that's something you're interested in, any landowner within the entire state of Texas is eligible to participate, and then any size land parcel is eligible as well. So if you've got 5 acres up to 5,000 acres, the entry fee is the same on all of them, and you can participate in whatever you want. Now, I can tell you from experience that the bigger piece of land isn't always a better piece of land. I've been on places like in the Texas Hill Country that they're having an enormous amount of, or a tremendous amount of birds that, I think the place is maybe 15, 20 acres. It's not a really, really, really big place. One of the things I learned when I was out in the Panhandle, if you manage 5 acres really, really well, you may not have, big white-tailed deer hanging out there all the time. They may cross the place, but you'll have a lot of other little stuff too. And so because of the broad reach of the categories, I think no matter what size land you have, I think you'll find there are a lot of different categories you can enter. Because the thing is, again, whether it's 5 acres or 50,000 acres, the whole point is the people who have really been good stewards of the land and promoted wildlife and wildlife conservation on their places. They've got good places already queued up, ready to go. They just need a photographer that'll enter in this contest that they can join in with them. And then same as the photographer, if you're a landowner, $500 entry fee gets you entered in both those contests. And then the prize money in the end split 50-50 between the landowner and the photographer. So if I went to someone else's land and took pictures. So let's say, Miles, I go to your place and take pictures. You enter as the landowner, I enter as the photographer. We win one of the prizes. Let's say it's $100. Miles gets $50 in the end. I get $50 in the end. And so because the landowner and the photographer compete as a team. So the landowner provides the habitat and the wildlife and the place to go, and then the photographer comes and provides all the images. And so here's some common questions I think that come across. What's different about this photo contest? What makes it different is that all the pictures are taken on the participating private landowner's land during the 100-day window of the contest. And so it really provides a good opportunity for photographers and landowners to get to know each other, and the photographers really kind of slow down and get an intimate look at a piece of land and be able to cover it thoroughly in the time that they're there. If you go to places like Yellowstone and you're only there for 2 or 3 days, you're kind of blowing through that place and trying to see as much as you can because it's enormous. But on a contest like this, one of the things that I think, or the way I interpret it, and what I'm looking forward to doing as both a photographer and a landowner, is taking the time to really get to know the place, slow down instead of just trying to go as fast as I can to get it, pictures of whatever I see as fast as I can. Slow down and learn about what makes the whole place tick, and try to take a really kind of slow look at it and discover all the photographic opportunities that are on the place, not just the big charismatic animals, but even the smallest bugs. I remember in the contest I judged a couple of years ago, and I don't even know who took it because as a judge, I'm not privy to know who took the pictures. But one of the coolest pictures I saw in the entire contest was a picture of a ball of honeybees, and they were all up in a ball, and it was beautifully lit with flash. The lens selection was spot on. It's just a beautiful, beautiful photo, and it told a bigger story about a really small species of insect that I thought really spoke to me. Again, I don't know who took that picture, but that's the one I remember. As I remember back to judging that contest. And so whoever took that picture did a good job of just slowing down and really trying to learn the whole place. And so that's one of the things that makes this photo contest different. You're not just going out shooting a picture, picking your best picture and say, here you go. It's giving you a chance to spend some time on the land and spend some time with the landowner and pick their brains about where the best places are, and because they've got a vested interest in making you successful. And then how do I connect with the landowner? So Wildlife in Focus, if you're entering as just a photographer, they will connect you with the landowner after everyone registers for the contest. And so they're the ones that connect everybody in the end. And from looking at the pictures when I judged it a few years ago, they do a good job of doing that. And then do you have to shoot for all 100 days? And the answer to that is no. You can shoot for as many days as you want to. If it's just one day, then you can do that. If it's all 100 days, you can do that too. The best thing to do if you're shooting with another landowner is communicate with them, because it very well could be, because it's such a broad 100-day timetable, that, for example, on February 21st, if I started taking pictures on that day, and I had a lot of, let's say, wild turkeys on my property, February 21st isn't the best time. So I may spend a couple of days trying to figure out what's going on the property, do some scouting, take some pictures. But I may try to focus my efforts when that spring breeding season for not only turkeys, but also the other animals start to pick up and the migration season starts to pick up. So my efforts may be concentrated on a 2-week time span at the end of April, 1st of May. So, but it gives me that 100 days to try to figure out and strategize when the best time for me to go out is going to be, and when I've got the chance to shoot the most compelling images. And then this is a common question they tell me to get: what happens if they don't find a landowner? If you can't find a landowner, the Wildlife in Focus will issue a refund, but they tell me that's never happened before. They've always been able to match photographers with landowners. So that's a positive thing there, because no one wants to enter and not get a chance to compete. So that's what happens if you find a landowner. And then, can I enter as a landowner and photographer? I've been talking about that all night, and the answer to that is yes. And so before I go any further, I'm going to look back and see if there's any questions here or any comments. Scott says he's shooting at the Sick Dog Ranch again this year. He's looking forward to it. That's awesome, Scott. Full disclosure, I know Scott, and Scott's a great photographer, and I know he'll do a good job. Rick says sometimes, these are just some comments. Rick says sometimes the landowner really helps and sometimes they don't. I've been in 3 contests so far, and the last did the landowner really contribute. Well, I'm not sure about that, Rick, but it's good to hear your feedback on that. And then Alan says, do they connect with local landowner, or could it be somewhere across the state? I'm not sure about that. If you're listening in, Miles, you might answer that question. I think ideally, maybe wherever you want to go. If you want to go across the state, you can, or if there's some local landowners that want to participate, I'm sure they'd try to get you whatever fits what your needs are. And so if anybody has any other questions, feel free to pop them in. Like I promised you, Skip, it's not going to last very long at all. I told you we'd be done within the hour, and so it looks like we're tracking on that pretty nice already. And again, this wasn't meant to be a detailed discussion of the contest. They have the rules for that. I'll share with you on the next slide. It's got the information where you can download the current set of rules, and it's got information where you have the current set of rules, and you can take a look at all that. And so, Skip, I defer to the rules on that. What the post processing stipulations, what are they? And see what they have to say there. And then Miles, there, if y'all can read the chat, you can see that there, what Miles said, Alan, on your question. It could be anywhere in the state. And if you have a target area, they'll try to match you up with that. And so with that said, if you want more information and see the complete rules, you can download them at wildlifeinfocus.org. Again, I'm full disclosure. They asked me to help spread the word. I told them I would. I don't get any special treatment from anybody. I had to pay my money like everybody else. And so I'm just excited about the opportunity to really try to validate the things I've done on my own property and try to photograph them at the same time and just see how well they stack up. Now, given my history in contest, I'm not getting my hopes up that I'll win anything, but I am still excited about competing. And so I'm excited to bring all this information to you guys. And I hope people will get involved more on this. And Scott says when the when the contest is over, he always gives. Oh, we got a lot of content. Got a lot of questions here. I'll go through some of these comments as I see them. He always gives the card with all of his best photos, and I think that's important too. I'll tell you this: I've done a webinar in the past. To Scott's point, I've done a webinar in the past where I've called "Getting Along with Landowners," and there's really some practical strategies on what you can do. One of the things I'm no one special. I've had access to a lot of private land in my life, and the one way I did is I just asked. And then once you ask and you get access to private land, there's a certain set of norms you need to abide by. One of the things I tell people all the time is leave the gates as you find them. If a gate's open, leave it open. If it's closed, make sure you close it when you go in. And but one of the things I've always done, to Scott's point, is I'd always try to share if someone was gracious enough to let me on the property to photograph something neat that they had there, I was always gracious enough to give them a lot of good photos in the end. And that gift of photography goes a long, long, long way in making sure you get invited back. So that's a good point there. And then I see Miles is answering some of the questions in there. And then, yeah, I see the question there. What Skip says, if you know a landowner already, and that's a pretty good way to go if you know a landowner already. I see Miles answering plenty of those questions there, so I'll just kind of let those play out. But anyway, go to wildlifeinfocus.org and check out the rules there. I'm not an expert on the rules. I've entered. I paid my money. I've entered. I'm anxious to compete and see how well I stack up against other photographers who enter. I think that's going to be the fun part for me, is just seeing how all this plays out. I'm excited to recap a little bit about how it's open statewide now, because before, just because of my schedule and my commitments I have to work, I wasn't born particularly pretty, so I could never make any money as a male model. So I still have to go to work every day. And because of that, going to South Texas would be a little inconvenient for me. But the fact now that it's open statewide is really exciting for me, because I think it should be exciting for other photographers, because if you're like Skip and you know someone, a landowner who may want to enter, it'd be a good time to get in contact with them and just partner up with a landowner that you already know and get them aboard on this contest. Again, I've been blessed to be able to. I'm going to enter. If you followed me before a lot of these things, you know I've been working on Redlands Ranch for a while now, and so this is my chance to enter Redlands Ranch, to showcase some of the stuff I've done on my own property, and then go out and spend time there and photograph there. The fact that I might could get a little recognition with with maybe some placing in the contest, and I might could win some money back is really a little bit of consolation. But really for me, the main thing is it just gives me a good, motivated, focused thing to concentrate on and shoot, because a lot of times I get lost in all these things I got going on, and I have a hard time focusing. So with this contest and me making a strategy based on the categories I think I can do best in, I'm going to have a real focused approach at trying to photograph for this contest in the end. And I mean this with all sincerity. I'm pretty excited about that, and building a strategy and trying to figure out, what I can do to try to be the most successful in it. And so, like Miles said, registration's open now, and they've got some South Texas places looking for a photographer. But anybody in North Texas, Central Texas, anywhere else that you may have access to, if you know a landowner that may want to enter, again, the entry process is the same. I entered just today, in fact, earlier today, as a landowner, and so that entry process is pretty simple. It took me a couple of minutes to enter, and then once you enter, Miles, I'm guessing, and you can put in the chat here that y'all will follow up with more information as the time draws closer to start competing on this whole thing. Am I right about that, Miles? And Miles, if you don't mind, answer this question too. If they go to Wildlife in Focus and people have specific questions, when they email, does that email come directly to you? And that way they can get an answer pretty expeditiously. Skip, I can tell you, yes, you can pay with a credit card, because that's how I paid today. Yeah, there you go. Miles at wildlifeinfocus.org. That's his email address right there if you take a look at that. So send Miles an email. Miles is a really nice guy. He's incredibly patient because I've drug my feet on a couple of things, getting ready for things like this because I've been for no excuse. I told Miles today I may be slow, but I'm thorough and I always do what I say I'm going to do. And so it took us a while to get on the same page on some of these things in this webinar tonight. But I'm glad he stuck with me because again he's incredibly patient and is doing a good job trying to put this whole thing together. And then he put a link in there for a video. I watched that video today, in fact, about past participants talking about their experiences with the contest. So if any, if well, I'll stick around on here for a couple more minutes if anyone has any questions for Miles. And again, take note of his email address and send him an email if you have any questions at all. And I'm looking back. Miles, I don't know if you saw Sherry's email from above, and if you answered her question. Okay, there you go. George just answered. Thanks for that, George. I appreciate that. So it looks like some people in here already have experience with the contest. Again, my experience with the contest is pretty limited. I entered last time, but I never turned any pictures in because I just wasn't happy with what I got. I got unexpectedly busy during the contest period, and I just didn't get any pictures that I was really happy with trying to enter, and so I just didn't enter anything. I was happy to donate my money. Scott, I'm looking at your question. I think that's a yes. I think you still can partner up as a 2 photographer team. In fact, I know you can. I know you can do that because I saw that on entry today. All right, I'm gonna put my I'm gonna put my email address in here too, if you're interested, because I'm always happy to talk photography. One of the things I tell everybody is you're looking at the entire photography enthusiast community of Dodge City, Texas. When you look at me on one of these webinars, there's not a whole lot of people that talk photography, at least the kind of photography we all in this webinar like to do. I always enjoy talking photography. So there's my email address there if anyone has any specific questions for me or anything like that at all. And if I can't answer them, I'll try to forward them on. I'll try to find you the right spot where you can get your question answered or forward them on to Miles and let him answer them. He's really the contest expert. Again, I want to make this really clear that they just asked me to spread the word amongst my audience. I don't have a leg up on anybody. I'm competing just like everybody else is. And so I just, was just a believer in the contest and really believed in what they're doing and what they're trying to accomplish, and just the way they're doing it hits home for me because again, I'm a nature lover, I'm a photography lover, I'm a landowner. I kind of check a lot of the boxes that they're trying to do outreach for, and so when he asked me to spread the word about what we're doing, I was more than happy to help him out with it. Got a lot of good questions coming through, so I'm going to give it a chance, give it a second before I close this webinar out, give Miles a chance to answer all these questions. Yeah, thanks, Rick, on that. I may be reaching out to you, Rick, on a couple of questions to see, just to pick your brain about a couple things. I don't know if you saw that question. I don't know if you saw that question, Miles, but Bill had a question up above. So yeah, so Scott mentioned that about blind judging. He's right. When I was a judge a few years ago, like I said, and I think I alluded to that earlier when I was talking about that one picture I remember seeing. I don't, when you judge, you don't know who anybody's pictures are. I mean, there's just pictures on the screen, and They didn't let anyone know who the judges were ahead of time, so it's not like anyone could could lobby the judges or anything like that. It was the integrity of the process, as far as I was concerned, was pretty sound. Uh, and again, I don't even know, and the way it's judged and the way the scoring's done, I don't I don't think I even knew who the overall winners were, even when we judged. As I recall, and it's been a few years ago, so forgive me for this. As I recall, they didn't announce the overall winners, the grand, the category winners and the grand prize winners until the night that they had their awards banquet. So that's when I found out kind of the various things that won. And so it was, again, it was pretty airtight in terms of how it's all done. And so I've got confidence, again, because I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I've got confidence that everything's going to be done fairly in the end. So I have no problem with the way they've run the contest in the past. And that is a good point. Thanks for bringing that up, Scott. All right, Bill, thanks for providing your email address. And okay, Daryl. Yeah, I'd be interested who took that B photo, because I don't know. To me, it's a really nice picture, and it's one that stood out to me, and so uh, that's why I remember it so vividly. It was just so well done, and again, it wasn't the reason why I liked it so much. As I recall, it was such a, it checked all the boxes for me in technical excellence and composition and all that, but it was such an unusual photo that really stood out to me, because at some point, a big whitetail deer is a big whitetail deer. Beautiful photos, but when you can do something unusual like that, it really kind of stands out. And so it was pretty neat. Okay, okay, I know who she is on the photographer. That was kind of, yeah, that's good. Yeah, I know who she is. Well, good for her. Yeah, this is the first I've heard of that. I didn't know before who it was. So uh, that's awesome. Well, good. I think we're about to wrap it up. It looks like we've got all the questions answered. So again, if you're following along, and I'll record this. If you register for this, you'll get an email from me in a day or two with the reposting of this webinar, if you want to go back and take a look at it and uh, and just review the things we talked about tonight. But if you go to wildlifeinfocus.org, that's your best bet for really answering a lot of your questions. And if something's not clear there, reach out to Miles, ask him about anything you want to know about the contest. Like I said, guy couldn't be more patient, more gracious. I mean, he's dealt with me for a while on all this stuff, so I really appreciate that in him, the efforts he's doing to make sure this contest is is going is going well. And uh and so I'm looking forward to it. Now I see some other people showing. Hey, Linda, hope you're doing well. uh but anyway, if no one else, I see all those tips coming in. If no one else has any questions or any further comments, again, reach out to Miles. If you just want to talk photography, reach out to me, russell@russellgraves.com. Always happy to talk about this stuff. Again, a couple days, if you register for this webinar and you want to watch it again, you'll go out again. There's a lot of people who registered didn't show up tonight, which is expected, but I'll send it out to everybody involved. And so, with that said, everybody have a great, I don't even know what tonight is, Tuesday night, I think. Everybody have a great Tuesday night, and hope to see you soon. Take care.